Round 2 of Concacaf World Cup qualifying nears its crescendo. We welcome you to the pristine island of Anguilla as Anguilla welcomes El Salvador on this Saturday afternoon in the Valley. Hi everybody, John Gross with you. Happy to have you along for the ride today, wherever you may be tuning in from. It is a picture-perfect day in the Valley, 86 degrees, a slight breeze. It is humid, that's the one thing to consider. Otherwise, a perfect day for World Cup qualifiers. Here's a look at the Group F standings, and as you see, El Salvador sitting on 4 points. This match amounts to almost a must-win. At the very least, El Salvador must earn a result in this one. Meanwhile, Anguilla, 0 points, already eliminated from contention of qualifying for the third round of World Cup qualifiers. El Salvador, 1 win, 1 draw, 4 points for La Selecta, led by Hernan Gomez. It's a squad that certainly has expectations of not only advancing to the third round, but reaching the World Cup. Anything shy of that would be disappointing, and anything shy of getting to round 3 of qualifications would certainly be catastrophic. And this kicks off a pivotal 4-day stretch for El Salvador, seeking a spot in that third and final round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. El Salvador coming off of a 1-1 draw in a friendly against Guatemala back on May 31st. It was an 89th minute equalizer by the 16-year-old Brandon Ramirez to tie that Guatemala side, who was down a man from the 84th minute on. Ramirez, just 16 years of age, the youngest player in El Salvador's history, also the youngest goal scorer in that match, making his debut. Meanwhile, for Anguilla, on the heels of a 6-0 loss against St. Vincent and the Grenadines earlier this week, Anguilla only trailed 2-0 at halftime, but had just 1 shot on target for the match and was outplayed considerably in the final 45 minutes. You look back to the last qualifying window, El Salvador, a scoreless draw against Puerto Rico, and then beat St. Vincent and the Grenadines 3-1. Both squads making their way out of the pitch here at Raymond E. Guishard Technical Center in the Valley. Lovely day for this World Cup qualifying match. El Salvador, again, still very much alive for contention in round 3. It would clinch a round 3 spot with 4 points or more over its last 2 matches. A couple of other scenarios as well at play. Could win today, have a Puerto Rico loss or draw against St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but certainly options for La Selecta to advance. As both teams line up for the national anthem, we will take a pause. We'll have kickoff and lineups for you coming up in a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of El Salvador, to be followed by the national song of Anguilla.
Just about set for this one. Anguilla and El Salvador, the hosts in their final World Cup qualifying match, already having been eliminated from reaching the top two in the group. That is what is required to advance to round 3 of World Cup qualifying. El Salvador, we showed you the standings before, currently tied with Puerto Rico on points with 4. Also -5 in goal differential compared to Puerto Rico. So a win today, a result today, really is necessary for El Salvador. Beyond just getting the points, also adding to that goal tally, extending that goal differential, and at least closing the gap with Puerto Rico in that regard. As you see La Selecta, 1 win, 1 draw in World Cup qualifying towards 2026. It was last June, a scoreless draw against Puerto Rico, a 3-1 win against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That's the same St. Vincent and the Grenadines squad that beat Anguilla 6-0 earlier this week. Let's take a look at the starting 11 for Keith Jeffrey and company. 5 at the back for Anguilla today. It's a squad that will play without the ball for the majority of this match, but quite a bit of rotation from last match. 7 changes to the starting 11 from the match earlier this week against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And you look in goal, it's the 41-year-old Jelani Lawrence getting the start. And you look at our match officials. Philip Duich leads the way, the Canadian, primarily an MLS referee. He's joined by 2 other Canadians, Gerard Kader-Lebuy, Christopher Wadham, and then the Jamaican in Okato Nicholson. Now we'll look at the starting 11 for Hernan Bolio Gomez, who was hired earlier this year, La Selecta, sending out a group that has just 3 changes from its friendly last week against Guatemala, but it's 3 notable changes. Look in the middle of the pitch, Nathan Ordaz of LAFC in MLS, young, talented player. Then atop the formation, Brian Hill, 3 international goals in 11 caps, somebody who can really score for this squad. And then the veteran Alexander Larin, who has the most caps and most goals on this El Salvador roster, gets the start today. And that was a 1-1 draw against Guatemala that saw 9 of the 11 starters subbed off at halftime. Again, it was the 16-year-old and Brandon Ramirez who equalized in the 89th minute against Guatemala. Third ever meeting between Anguilla and El Salvador. El Salvador took the first 2. As we wait for the whistle from Philip Duich. El Salvador in the white kits, Anguilla in the orange tops, blue bottoms. Anguilla, its first ever sojourn into the second round of World Cup qualifying. A footballing nation that has long been near the bottom of the FIFA World Rankings, currently 209, but finding some progress, some growth, though a major test today with El Salvador, ranked 81st in the world, and in a must-win situation in town today. We are underway, El Salvador and Anguilla, on this Saturday afternoon in the Valley. El Salvador kicking off this critical 4-day stretch as La Selecta seeks a spot in that third round of World Cup qualifiers. Top 2 of each group gets there. From there, the top team in the 3 groups will advance to the World Cup. It will be divided up via draw, and an early goal kick on the way for Jelani Lawrence. You see Brian Hill, dangerous player for the Salvadoran squad. 3 goals in 11 caps. This is his first World Cup qualifying appearance. And it's his first national team appearance since March of 2024, a friendly against Honduras. Here's Leverett, just 15 years of age. The fullback for Anguilla lost it, but it's a young Anguilla side. And a young footballing nation at that. The Anguilla Football Association, founded in 1990. trying to grow in Concacaf. Here's Jairo Enriquez, sends one in. Enriquez ball sneaks through, and a goal kick on the way. Jairo Enriquez, the native of San Salvador, he has been a key piece of El Salvador's squad in World Cup qualifiers in years past. 3 of his 5 national team goals have come in World Cup qualifying matches. Goal kick from Jelani Lawrence, the 41-year-old. He was born in Dominica, eligible to play for Anguilla. Bit of space to work with. That cross takes a deflection. St. Fabian tries to clear it, can't do so. Ortiz pops into the area. Hill heads it just wide. And another goal kick on the way. La Selecta knocking on the door. And it's been their ability to get the ball into those wide areas and find that target man. Brian Hill. Hill, who plays for Baltika Kaliningrad in the Russian 2nd Division, helped them earn the 2nd Division title and promotion into the 1st Division earlier this season. Here's Ordaz, couldn't quite get there. And a throw into the way for the visitors. Cartagena. Here's Larine, making his 85th national team cap. He scored 7 goals, 7 assists in those now 85 caps. Cartagena. Larine. Larine got a toe on it. And it's given away. Landavera, that comes out, and a distant strike off target from Brian Tamakis. Well, Tamakis, with his cap today, now tying Marvin Gonzalez for the 6th most appearances in El Salvador history. And that's not a spot of the pitch that you typically see him frequenting. There's Keith Jeffrey, hired back in 2024. 2 wins, 5 losses, and 2 draws in competitive matches with Anguilla, the Trinidad and Tobago native. Previously led the Turks and Caicos Islands national team. Cartagena. Enriquez. He gives it away. Thus far, this remarkably low block of Anguilla withstanding the Salvadoran attempts forward. Cartagena lifts one long, and Enriquez could not get there. Again, a goal kick for Jelani Lawrence. There's Alexander Larine, the 32-year-old, 2nd most caps earned in La Selecta history, debuted all the way back in 2012. And with his appearance today, now playing in his 4th World Cup qualifying cycle. And you want to talk about World Cup qualifying, that man has done it better than most. Hernan Bolio Gomez. He's one of just 4 managers ever to lead 3 or more different nations to the World Cup. Henri Michel, Bora Milutinovic, and Carlos Alberto Pereira, the others. But Gomez led Colombia to the '98 World Cup, Ecuador to the 2002 World Cup, its first appearance ever, And Panama back in 2018, also its first ever World Cup appearance. And he's hoping to do the same with his El Salvador squad, who has not reached the World Cup since 1982. Here's a promising moment. Ortiz rolls it central. And Lake Bryan looks to clear, though he gives it right back to La Selecta. And a corner on the way. Nathan Ordaz will send this in. Today making his first World Cup qualifier appearance. 21-year-old from Los Angeles, California, plays for LAFC in MLS. Was a starter on that LAFC squad that beat Club America in the World Cup play-in game. Ordaz lifts one in, and again, a corner coming. Ordaz floats it backside, chested down Landavera. Couldn't let it fly. And Anguilla again disposes of a Salvadoran attempt. Lareen. No trouble for Lawrence. So 8 minutes through, there have been no shortage of opportunities for the Salvadoran side, but nothing to show for it. Jelani Lawrence, the 5th oldest player to ever earn a cap in an Anguilla kit. Debuted back in 2022. He was a part of the Concacaf Nations League C Best 11 last year. Enriquez. Cartagena. Lovely diagonal ball. But a throw in on the way for Anguilla. Anguilla seeking its first ever World Cup qualifying win. It did advance out of the first round with a draw followed by a penalty shootout victory against Turks and Caicos Islands. This is the first time that the Anguillans have ever qualified for round 2 of World Cup qualifying. So certainly progress for this side. An island of just 15,000 people, but features 33 of the best beaches in the world. Here's Ordaz. Lareen. Enriquez takes a deflection. Enriquez ball trickles out for another corner. This is number 3 for the visitors. And it's been El Salvador working it into these wide areas. And credit to Anguilla, keeping El Salvador out of the middle portion of the pitch, really forcing it wide. This 5-man back, but a third corner kick, and an in-swinger flicked on frame, and that's wide. Brian Landavera got his head on it. Landavera, his 28th cap with El Salvador. Plays for Luis Angel Firpo, domestically in El Salvador. Furthest up the pitch that we've seen Anguilla with the touch. Leverett lifts it long. Look back to the match earlier this week for Anguilla, just one shot on target. Played out of possession for the majority of that fixture, similar to what we're seeing today. The Anguillans were within striking distance through 45 minutes against St. Vincent of the Grenadines, down just 2-0, but conceded 4 in the second half. Ordaz. Larin. Here's Enriquez. Ordaz. Ortiz. Landavera. Ordaz. Check that, Larin. Here's Ordaz. Wide for Ortiz. Marked by Lake Bryan. Ortiz skies one in. That is headed away by Leverett, the 15-year-old fullback. Deans able to loft it away long. This Anguilla defense continues to withstand this attacking pressure from El Salvador. Although what a lovely ball that is. Rolled central, Hill turned away. And another corner coming. This was a precise ball, to say the least. Brought in by Tamakas, who found Hill. But Nathaniel Owen was alongside him, did just enough to prevent that from heading on frame. That strike turned away. Scooped up by Enriquez. Down he goes. They play on. And again cleared away. Only as deep as Cartagena. Well, it just feels like a matter of when, not if, El Salvador will break through, though Anguilla have done enough so far defensively. Keith Jeffrey's side just sitting in so deep, which is to be expected against a squad like El Salvador. Here's Santos Ortiz. His cross deflected. And a throw in for the visitors. Landavera. Santos Ortiz. Marked by Kieran Lake Bryan. Enriquez. Enriquez skies one in. Hill could not chest it down. And no trouble for Jelani Lawrence. Anguilla is just saying, hey, we will let you knock the ball around. But they're doing a good job of forcing La Selecta into wide areas. Lawrence, a shanked boot. So a free kick awarded, and the medical crew will be ushered on. Contact to the head area. And that will always warrant an extra look. It was on the second leap. Hill and Antoine Fleming went airborne. And the head-to-head contact. Again, any sort of contact to that head or neck area will automatically prompt some medical assistance. Fleming, the native of Stony Ground, Anguilla, plays domestically for East Enders in the Anguillan Football League. Majority of the Anguillan team plays in the 10-team Anguilla Football League. It's an amateur league, however, so they also all work day jobs. And just 3 players for Keith Jeffrey's side play outside of Anguilla. Luke Paris, Lamar Carpenter, and Antonio Fleming. Carpenter, who, by the way, does get the start today, did not play earlier this week against St. Vincent of the Grenadines. Carpenter, who is from England, has the 5th most goals in Anguilla's history with 3 goals. He scored 2 of those 3 goals in last fall's Nations League window. Good to see both Fleming and Hill back on their feet. They'll be ushered back onto the pitch momentarily. Cartagena. Anguilla a little bit more exposed at the back. Now able to retreat. Here's Santos Ortiz, who just won the Salvadoran Super Cup with Anguilla, one of the Salvadoran giants. Cartagena. Larine. Larine again. Marked by Fleming. Ortiz. Cartagena. There is just 0 room to operate. At least once they approach that attacking third. Well read by Malachi Gums, making his first start of World Cup qualifying. The 19-year-old played 22 minutes as a substitute earlier this week. And his birthday was this past Tuesday, so happy belated birthday, Malachi Gums. Getting the start today for the Anguillans. Ordaz slides one across. Well played by Fleming. And a throw into the way for Keith Jeffrey's side. Through 20 minutes, we are still scoreless. An Anguilla squad that is already eliminated from contention for advancing to the 3rd round. Meanwhile, El Salvador entering this pivotal 4-day stretch, playing today and then next Tuesday against Suriname. And what could be the decisive match to decide whether El Salvador advances or not. But a win today would go a long way towards achieving that goal of advancing to round 3. But nothing to show for it just yet. A dominant start possession-wise, but the quality chances have been lacking thus far for La Selecta. Ortiz. Larine, the veteran, playing in his 4th World Cup qualifying window, hoping to make it for the first time. Enriquez steps into one, skips it off of Lawrence, and he falls on it. Jelani Lawrence with the save. Enriquez creating that separation. And this pitch does lead to some funky hops, so not the worst idea in the world to keep it low. Lawrence had it well played initially, able to fall on it. Landavera dispossessed. Oh, it's taken back by Heel. Here's Enriquez. Larine chops it central, headed away. Landavera was ready to unleash on it, as it's taken right back and driven to Lawrence, no trouble. Jelani Lawrence, the 41-year-old goalkeeper for Anguilla, playing in his first World Cup qualifying cycle, as that's given away to Enriquez. Dangerously so, but a last-gasp effort by Jermaine Hughes, the captain, sends it away clear. Another opportunity for El Salvador, who have been dominant on the ball. Roughly 80% possession for La Selecta. This will be corner number 5. And another empty trip. 7 shots. Just 1 shot on target for Hernan Gomez's side. Ortiz shovels wide. Tamacas. Here's Cartagena. Past the midway point of this first 45. Enriquez twirls it in there. And Lawrence again brings it in. Well, Anguilla's strategy has been clear, it has been consistent, it has been successful thus far. El Salvador have yet to muster that quality chance. Cartagena. Dial's been long. Enriquez all over it. Jairo Enriquez dodges 1, dodges 2. His strike turned away. Larine now. 1-2 back for Larine. And Fleming will watch it roll out for a goal kick. Hernan Gomez, hired back in February with simply 1 goal, qualified for the World Cup. 3 Concacaf spots remain. The US, Mexico, and Canada, by virtue of hosting the World Cup already, clinching spots. 3 more Concacaf spots remain. And then beyond that, 2 teams will enter the inter-federation playoff to determine the final spots in the World Cup. And that will bring us to our first hydration break. A sweltering day in the Valley. Real feel in the low 90s, and that will prompt our first cooling break as Philip Duich, our match referee, blows the whistle. And through 25 minutes, maybe a bit of a surprising scoreline, 0-0 still. El Salvador, 8th ranked team in CONCACAF, ranked 81 in the FIFA World Rankings against 209th ranked Anguilla, second to last in the Worlds, ahead of San Marino out of UEFA. And the question now for El Salvador, how do you pick apart, break down this Anguilla team that is sitting so far in? There is very little breathing room in that attacking third outside of some of the wide areas. And you'd imagine that the Salvadoran side will invite Anguilla to try to play a little bit more up the pitch, try to open things up at the back. Thus far, Anguilla hasn't obliged. Meanwhile, for Keith Jeffrey and his Anguilla team, 0 wins, 0 draws, 3 losses, and a goal differential of -18 in the 3 World Cup qualifying matches of round 2. However, just the fact that this squad is at this point is notable. Anguilla in the second round of World Cup qualifying for the first time ever. Here's a look at some of the highlights that we've seen through the first 25 or so minutes. And it's been a lot of El Salvador with the ball out wide, sending in crosses. You see Ortiz try to sky one in. That was probably the best moment that we saw from El Salvador in terms of creating chances. And then the giveaway at the back. But Anguilla has, again, done enough to make life difficult. This one of the best shots that we've seen today. But again, it was right at Jelani Lawrence. Unfazed by the skipping strike as we get back to it after the cooling break. Everybody behind the ball for Anguilla. Ordaz. Marked by the captain, Jermaine Hughes, who has meant so much to this national team program. And again, a goal kick for Jelani Lawrence. Nicholas Loblak, the one who sends it away. The native of London, England. Anguilla does have a handful of guys who are from outside of Anguilla, but are of Anguillan descent, eligible to play for this team. It's been part of the effort of the Anguilla Football Association to try to build this national team. As that hit, Philip Duich. And we'll restart things with the drop ball. Cartagena. Ortiz. Ortiz skips one in. Lifted out of danger. Brought in by Carpenter. And then he's taken off of it. Landavera the takeaway. Enriquez. Works on Fleming. Jabs it out for Lareen. Lareen's ball stays in the area. Lawrence tries to fist it away, off the post, still loose, and on the backside, it's buried. A breakthrough for El Salvador. It took nearly 30 minutes, but the opening salvo finally through for La Selecta. Santos Ortiz, the finishing touches. Let's take one more look at it. It was Jairo Enriquez working on Fleming. Lareen's ball headed straight up, and Lawrence just could not haul it in. And to the backside, it's buried by Santos Ortiz, his second international goal. And then you see Nathaniel Owen just lost his footing as well. And Lawrence looking for the whistle. Did not get it as he went airborne with heel. And that was the moment right there. Owen losing his footing. And Ortiz able to bang it home. It's his second goal for El Salvador. There he is, Santos Ortiz. Plays domestically for Anguilla, one of the most successful clubs in El Salvador. And he has the opening goal for La Selecta. But if you look at the Group F standings, it's not just the points that matter, but the goal differential matters as well. Currently, El Salvador 5 goals behind. Puerto Rico, as two Anguillan players get tangled up, Lake Bryan still down. A surge forward, it's Enriquez. Dashes central, he's turned away. Handball waved off. Stays with El Salvador. Ortiz drives one in. Headed out by Fleming. Kieran Lake Bryan still down, and now it's whistled. Kieran Lake Bryan today making his 20th appearance for Anguilla. The 21-year-old from London, England, holding that left ankle. He's part of that contingent from outside of Anguilla, but of Anguillan descent. Eligible to play for the national team. And he's somebody who has played at various levels in his native England. Reports indicated recently that there was a potential move to the UAE, but a foot injury ended that. As we look back at this last chance, the potential handball. You see Heel pleading for it. And good to see Lake Bryan back on his feet. Again, somebody who did recently injure his foot earlier this week, which broke up that potential move from the English lower tiers to the UAE. Here's Enriquez. Cartagena. Cibrian, the captain, leaves it wide for Ortiz, the goal scorer. Ortiz ball popped away. Larine. Ordaz. Well read by Fleming. And Antoine Fleming able to flick it out of there. Here's Carpenter. One of his few touches that we've seen. Let's give it back to La Selecta. 1-0 scoreline. Santos Ortiz, the 30th minute goal, breaking through this deadlock. Ordaz. Larine now. Enriquez again. He's been very active in this first 45. Enriquez slips it. Stabbed away from Ordaz. Santos, he goes down. And a free kick on the way for El Salvador. It was Lake Bryan who is back out there. Upended the goal scorer, Santos Ortiz. Alexander Larine and Jairo Enriquez stand over it. Larine, a legend of the national team. Second most caps all time for El Salvador. He stands to the right of it, and it's Jairo Enriquez standing behind it. Larine lets it fly. Lawrence turns him away. Ortiz cycles it back out. Larine, mile high delivery. Headed away. Landavera. Lifted in. Landaverde finds Cartagena. Carpenter trying to extend forward. Oh, what a lovely ball this is. Ortiz nearly brought it in. And it is clipped away for a corner. Great idea on that through ball. There's one more look at this last free kick. It was sent directly on frame. Lawrence was ready for it. And it's another corner kick for the visitors. Towards the back post, Lawrence high points it. There's Leverett, the 15-year-old. Nickname is Pockets for how well he defends. Here's Leverett again making an impact. And Fleming wins a throw. Here's Hughes, the captain. Leaves it wide towards Gums. Bit heavy on the feed. One of the few touches we've seen for Anguilla in the attacking half of the pitch. Landaverde. Salvador looking for that second as we wind down to this first 45. The 30th minute goal by Santos Ortiz, the difference. Here is the goal score. Ordaz, the young player from LAFC and MLS. Santos. Ordaz again. Larine. Enriquez. Ortiz lays one in, and Lawrence finds it. Well, Jelani Lawrence has been a busy man today. He's dealt fairly well with the majority of these crosses that have been sent in. Made his national team debut 3 years ago. Currently playing in his first World Cup qualifying cycle. Ordaz. Here's Larine. Lifts it ahead for Heel. And that'll skip over everybody for a goal kick. Well, Brian Hill making his World Cup qualifying debut. Somebody who comes from a footballing family. Moved to El Salvador at the age of 4 as a result of his dad, Cristian's playing career. Brian born in Colombia, but spent time in El Salvador. His brother Meyer and Cristian Jr. also have played for the Salvadoran national team. Inside the final 5 minutes of this first 45. It's gone about as we've expected in terms of possession, but Anguilla, for the most part, holding strong defensively. Ordaz into space. Ordaz able to sneak it through. Lifted on, Heel brings it down, and cleared away by Fleming. Cartagena. Ordaz. And an errant feed results in an Anguilla throw. Beautiful day here in the Valley. The 30th minute goal by Santos Ortiz, the difference here at Raymond Guishard Technical Center on the island of Anguilla. Picturesque island, 33 of the world's best beaches. Hoping to build the footballing infrastructure to compete, cycle in, cycle out in terms of World Cup qualifying. And a major hurdle cleared this year, or last year I should say, getting out of the first round of World Cup qualifying for the first time in this nation's history. Ortiz, well defended by Lake Bryan. Ordaz. There's Enriquez playing a bit more centrally than we saw for much of this first half. Lareen now. Landaverde. Lareen. And a corner on the way. Off the head of Antoine Fleming, who plays domestically for EastEnders, the Stony Ground Anguilla native. Corner quickly taken, chipped in, headed away. Cartagena volleys forward. Landaverde all over it. Lake Bryan leaves it forward. Deans. Nothing there. Ortiz has Tamakas on the overlap. Here is Brian Tamakas. That strike turned away. Enriquez leaves it for Lareen. Lareen lifts it in. Heel goes airborne, as does Lawrence. Well, for an Anguilla side that has given up an average of 6 goals per match in the 3 World Cup qualifying matches of this round, it has been an admirable defensive effort in this first 45 so far against an El Salvador team that enters today with pressure to earn not only a win, but a convincing win. Initial indications suggest 5 minutes of added time. And there it is from our 4th official, Cato Nicholson. 5 minutes of stoppage time as we wind down to this first half. Anguilla wins the throw, one of the few times that we've seen possession in the attacking half for the home side today. Still searching for that first goal in this second round of World Cup qualifying. Ball lifted in towards Carpenter. Hill battles for it. Quite the tie-up. And low black whistled. Free kick on the way for El Salvador. Landaverde. Lareen. Lareen once more. Final minutes of this first half. Cruz. Here's Larine. Centering feed, Landaverde rolls it through. Fleming bats it away. Landaverde got a toe on it. Cleared out of the area. Cartagena cycles it wide. Ciprian plays it in. That strike turned away. Ortiz can't let it fly. And a free kick awarded to Anguilla. And this Anguillan defense, which has been made up of the entirety of the 11 players on the pitch today, continues to be nearly impenetrable. Curious to see the dressing room adjustments from Hernan Gomez. Also interested to see if the scoreline does remain just 1-0. Does Anguilla decide to be a bit more aggressive, extending some more numbers forward in the second half, given, again, Anguilla out of contention for round 3 of World Cup qualifying. Today, the final match of this round for Anguilla. El Salvador still one more to play in what will likely be a decisive match against Suriname on Tuesday. That one in El Salvador at the vaunted Estadio Cuscatlán, which is as difficult of a venue to play in out of any in all of Concacaf. Ortiz. Tamacas. Final minutes of stoppage time. Easily swept away. Cruz. Enriquez. Wide for Larine. Taken off of it by Fleming. Enriquez. Here's Landaverde. Cartagena lets one rip. His strike didn't get through that back line. Cruz switches for Larine. Landaverde. Enriquez. Lovely combination. Ordaz rolls it central, and Hill bags it. It's a second for El Salvador. Brian Hill, his 4th goal with the national team. And La Selecta doubles its edge just before the midway point. Lovely interplay, and it's a well-deserved and a hard-earned goal at that. Just quick passing. The run from Ordaz, one-touch feed, and Hill able to find Twine. Brian Hill, his 4th goal with El Salvador in his 12th cap. Efficiency. And there's the whistle from Philip Duich as El Salvador leads at the break, a 2-0 advantage. Getting that second just before the halftime whistle, courtesy of that man. Brian Hill, in his World Cup qualifying debut, gives El Salvador a 2-0 edge. It was Ortiz in the 30th, Hill in stoppage time. And La Selecta has a 2-0 edge at the break. Back here in the valley in Anguilla, halftime between El Salvador and Anguilla. El Salvador a 2-0 edge as we look back at the first half highlights. An early chance from Brian Heel. That was the storyline in the first half an hour or so, I'd say. El Salvador getting the ball into wide areas and just hoping and praying that Heel can climb the ladder and win some headers. Anguilla did a nice job disposing of many of those chances. You see this strike off target from Tamakas, who isn't all too comfortable taking strikes from that distance. A fullback for this Salvadoran side. Again, it was El Salvador getting it wide. This time, though, we did see Enriquez dash central, let one skip off the turf. No trouble, though, for Jelani Lawrence, who had a busy first 45 minutes of action. And Lawrence reading that hop pretty well. It is a pitch that does produce some difficult bounces at times. And again, it's Enriquez working 1v1. Loreen sends it in. A frantic moment here. Lawrence goes airborne, tries to fist it away, and then Owen lost his footing, which opened the door to a wide open frame for Santos Ortiz. Finally a breakthrough for El Salvador, who had been ball dominant from the get-go. And Ortiz has his second goal with La Selecta. Made it 1-0 in the 30th minute. And then what interplay this was. The run for Mordaz, the unselfish distribution to Brian Heel, makes it 2 just before the halftime whistle. One of the few times that we've actually seen El Salvador able to break down Anguilla centrally down the spine of this defense. And it's a 2-0 scoreline at the break. La Selecta amounts to be a must-win match for them with the edge. Have a look at our first half statistics. 19 shots to 0 for El Salvador. 6 of those shots on target, also 7 corners. You see the possession numbers, 83%. I think for a decent chunk of the first maybe 20 or so minutes, the possession was empty possession. Yes, they had the ball, but there weren't the quality opportunities. Then they started to tinker and figure things out, certainly creating more dangerous chances as that first half progressed. And the scoreline is 2-0. El Salvador leading Anguilla at the break. We'll step aside. We'll have the second half for you coming up in a moment from the Valley. Back here in the Valley on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Anguilla. El Salvador 45 minutes away from securing 3 much-needed points as La Selecta seeks to advance to round 3 of Concacaf World Cup qualifying. The road to 2026 continues. 45 minutes left to play. The Salvadoran side seeking these critical 3 points, also looking to close the goal differential gap with Puerto Rico. El Salvador and Puerto Rico currently tied in points. No changes from either side at the midway point, and we are underway. Teams will switch sides. El Salvador in the white kits attacking the goal to our right. Anguilla in the orange tops going to our left. John Gross with you on this Saturday afternoon. Anguilla already eliminated from round 3 contention, but it has been a historic run regardless, getting to the second round of World Cup qualifying for the first time in this country's history. A tremendous achievement. Meanwhile, El Salvador, expectations to not only, of course, get to round 3, but to qualify for the World Cup for the first time since 1982 when the event was held in Spain. Anything shy of World Cup qualification would certainly be a disappointment. Anything shy of not getting out of the second round would be catastrophic for La Selecta. But a little bit more breathing room with that goal just before the halftime whistle by Brian Hill. His 4th goal wearing an El Salvador shirt in just 12 appearances. Here's Jairo Enriquez. Cartagena. Angles it wide for Ortiz. Got the scoring started. Somehow back on his feet. Ortiz leaves it central as it's sent away. Carpenter could not get there for Anguilla, but a down player for the home side. Philip Duich, our match referee, primarily referees in MLS. He's gone viral on multiple occasions for his VAR decisions. You may have seen it across social media. His VAR announcements, iconic to say the least. Enriquez. El Salvador kicking off this pivotal 4-day stretch. On Tuesday, will take on Suriname, currently leading Group F. Suriname. Free kick awarded to Anguilla. And it's a Suriname side that has been one of the great success stories in CONCACAF. A meteoric rise in recent years. Let's look back at this last whistle. You see Enriquez, a physical challenge. Free kick on the way for Nathaniel Owen, who plays in England, the 17-year-olds with Eastleigh FC, the U19s. Eastleigh, a 5th division side. Owen, just 17 years of age, earned his first senior team cap in Nations League last September. He played every minute of Anguilla's Nations League window last fall. Valuable experience for the young player. That's what Nations League able to offer, especially some of these smaller countries that are trying to ascend in the soccer realm, like Anguilla. Landaverde. There's Enriquez. Larine today playing in his 4th World Cup qualifying cycle with this appearance. A remarkable feat for the 32-year-old. Made his debut back in 2012 during 2014 World Cup qualifiers. Quickly tossed out for Malachi Gums, another young player for this Anguilla side. Strong challenge by Ortiz. Heel lays it off. Ordaz one time is wide. Nathan Ordaz certainly brings quality. Yes, he is young, but he is skilled. It all starts with this counter press from Ortiz, winning it back. Good hold-up play by Heel. And Ordaz the one-time strike. Ordaz the player for LAFC of MLS. 3 goals, 2 assists in 15 appearances this season. He started in LAFC's recent Club World Cup play-in match against Club America. A dramatic 2-1 extra time victory for LAFC in that match. Ordaz from Los Angeles, home to the largest Salvadoran population in the United States. Over 200,000 people of Salvadoran ancestry live in Los Angeles. So just imagine if this La Selecta side qualifies for the World Cup and happens to play in Los Angeles. They feel like a home match at Estadio Cuscatlán. Larine. Cartagena. Cycled wide. Low ball sniffed out with ease. Landaverde. Here's Ortiz. Back for Tamacas. Tamacas taken off of it. And Carpenter lost it. That's lifted in for Ortiz. Works the byline. Ordaz. Landaverde. Oh, a lovely back heel. Takes a bit of an unconventional hop. Landaverde. Here's Tamacas. Ordaz. Works the byline. Ordaz sneaks one across. That'll scamper out for an Anguillan throw. Anguilla, its final match of World Cup qualifying. Already eliminated from contention for the 3rd round. It's the 4th and final fixture of round 2 for the Anguillans. Hughes taps it away. Jermaine Hughes has been instrumental in Anguilla finding a bit more success on the football pitch in recent years. Back in 2018, Hughes reached out to a German scout named Pascal Panicic to help find players of Anguillan descent from around the world, primarily in the United Kingdom. And he was able to find some players that has helped to elevate the on-field product for Anguilla. The AFA, the Anguilla Football Association, has also invested more, building more facilities as Ortiz watches it roll out. And this is an island, just 15,000 people, a mere 35 square miles. But it is packed with beauty, packed with characters. Everywhere from Elvis Beach Bar to Banky Banks Dune Preserve. Some iconic fixtures on this pristine island. And 33 of the best beaches in the world on this island of Anguilla. Hoping that football can also become a word that is synonymous with this nation. Here's Ortiz. Ordaz now. Lets one fly, and Lawrence parries it away. Lawrence has to hustle back now, open net. That's nicked away. Lawrence able to retreat just in time. Hill has one goal already. Leaves it wide. Oh, back heel is just off target. Would have been a gorgeous goal. Let's take one more look at it. As Ortiz, that initial first step, but found Ordaz as that lethal left boot. What a save by Jelani Lawrence. And the back heel attempt by Ordaz would have been drop dead gorgeous. Down Anguilla player, requiring medical attention. We may see our first change of the match. It's Nick Loblack who is back on his feet, being ushered off the pitch. Loblack, who is from London, England, but is eligible to play for Anguilla through his grandfather. And that goes back to what we referenced earlier. Pascal Panicic, the German scout who has scoured the world looking for players eligible to play for Anguilla. Again, an island with so much to offer. The beauty, the character, all of it. But just 15,000 people. It's made it difficult to build this footballing program, but there has been progress in recent years. That is for certain. Here's Tamakas. Hill leaves it wide. Larine lost it in the overlap attempt. Well, if you're El Salvador, with the 2-0 edge now, you are currently 3 behind in goal differential compared to Puerto Rico, who you're level on points with. You'd love to just take care of business today and get a point against Suriname. Might have to worry about goal difference, but just in case, you can be certain that El Salvador would love to add to this edge. Anguilla looked to counter. Epinson Fabian nearly got his head on it and ran into Cartagena. If Anguilla are able to score, it will be a historic goal. The first goal for Anguilla in the second round of World Cup qualifying in the nation's history. Here's Ortiz. Finds Cartagena. Larine. Left wide. Here's Cartagena. Bit of space to operate. Tamakas. Ortiz now. Ortiz plays one across. Hughes is there. And Gum's able to lift it away, but an unconvincing clearance. Cartagena steps into one, and Hughes stabs it free. Fluttering ball. Cleared away by Kieran Lake Bryan. Two-0 lead for La Selecta. The 30th minute goal by Santos Ortiz. And then in first half stoppage time, in the final seconds, Brian Heel made it 2-0. Ortiz. That cross blocked out for another corner. Kieran Lake Bryant playing that left wing back spot in this back five. He's been busy, and Anguilla getting ready to make a couple of changes. Here's Keon Lee, left side of your screen. The native of North Side Anguilla plays domestically for Attackers FC will make his 24th appearance. And on also comes Tariq Jackson, the 15-year-old who plays domestically for Roaring Lions FC, which is historically the top club in the Anguillan Football League with 10 league titles. So 2 changes for Keith Jeffrey. Ordaz. Santos. Santos couldn't get it in there. Sent out by Gums, and again a corner at the hour mark. There is the 15-year-old Tariq Jackson. Here's Ortiz. Ordaz now. Ortiz again. Ortiz curls it in. Stays in the area. Enriquez. That's put just wide. We are through an hour. Two-0 lead for El Salvador. But it's one that this visitor certainly would like to see swell. Tariq Jackson now spearheading atop this formation for Anguilla. Jackson, the 15-year-old, scored 2 goals this season domestically with Roaring Lions FC. Part of the 10-team Anguilla Football League. Cruz. Enriquez. Larine. Landaverde leaves it back out. Ordaz in a pocket of space. Leaves it off. Volley on frame, and Lawrence snags it. Jelani Lawrence springs into action. It's another save for the veteran keeper. A lot has been asked of him today. Has only conceded the 2 goals. Not only a stellar save, but the ability to catch that ball as well. Very impressive from somebody who was named to the 2024 Concacaf Nations League C Best 11. Goals against average of just 1 in that event. 13 saves across 4 appearances. Like Bryan nods it away. Tamakas. Ortiz. Like Bryan again there defensively. Ordaz. Heel 1-2 back for Ordaz. Runs out of real estate. Heel wins it back though. Still jockeying for it and is dispossessed. Ball lifted into the area towards Hill. Had a toe on it. Comes out to Cartagena. Ripped away from him. Cruz now. Enriquez. Here's the captain, Cibrian. Tamakas. Ordaz. Skies it across. Space to send one through. Deans lifts it out for a throw. El Salvador getting ready to make an alteration. Enrico Dueñas getting set to enter. Here's Cartagena. Larine. This continues to be a treacherous task for El Salvador to penetrate the central areas of this Anguilla defense with all 11 players back as Ortiz sneaks in behind. Ball pinballs around and settles innocently to Kieran Lake Bryan. He'll just bomb that thing along. Jackson gives chase. And for the first time today, Mario Gonzalez gets called into action. Gonzalez, the native of San Miguel, El Salvador, who plays domestically for Alianza, just won the league in El Salvador. The three-time goalkeeper of the season. And sent out for another corner. Let's take one more look at it. Ortiz making that run in behind. Lawrence active coming off his line. This was a well-placed ball. And a crafty run by Ortiz. And a down player for Anguilla. And it is Kieran Lake Bryan, who we saw him shaken up in the first half. Came back on the pitch and is getting looked at again. He's been a valuable piece of this squad. Has gone the full 90 in 4 of 5 World Cup qualifying appearances dating back to round 1 last year. But it does appear as if he will exit. We just saw the signal from the trainer to make a change. We'll see if that does in fact happen. Corner kick for El Salvador. Enriquez. Back for Ordaz. Takes a deflection. And another corner coming. Quickly played in. Ordaz runs out of real estate. And a goal kick for Anguilla. And we will see some changes. El Salvador making alterations for the first time today. Off comes Santos Ortiz, the goal scorer, back in the 30th minute. He is replaced by Enrico Dueñas, making his 19th national team appearance. Anguilla making a change. Keontae Brooks, the 18-year-old, heads on. His 7th international cap. And Mauricio Cerritos will head on for El Salvador. Second cap for Cerritos, made his debut in the friendly against Guatemala. 45 minutes as a substitute in that 1-1 draw. Anguilla possession in the attacking half one of the few times today. Played wide and quickly given back. Nearing the final 20 minutes of this one. Here's Cerritos.
Ladies and gentlemen, substitution for Team El Salvador. In the 68th minute, leaving the game, player number 12, Santos Ortiz. Entering the game, player number 10, Enrico Dueñas.
Cartagena.
Leaving the game, player number 17, Ayuno Enriquez.
Alvarado.
Player number 14, Alvarado.
Here's Elvin Alvarado once more. His 4th international appearance. Recently inserted. Alvarado works the byline. Elvin Alvarado stabs it central. Knocked away. And sent out of danger. Alvarado active early in this one. Plays domestically for Isidro Metapan in El Salvador. Heel dropping back a bit from his normal striker spot. Tamakas powers it in there. Lifted out by Owen. Final 20 or so minutes of this one. El Salvador is still looking for more. Yes, if you're La Selecta, you will appreciate the 3 points, but I don't think a 2-0 victory would satisfy the squad and certainly would not satisfy the nation. It's an El Salvador squad with some expectations. And while there are some important players on the squad, there's also been a lot of talk about who is not a part of La Selecta in this World Cup window. There is Elvin Alvarado, who entered for Jairo Enriquez. But Darwin Seren, the longtime captain, not on the roster. Alex Roldan of Seattle Sounders and MLS resigned from the national team last year. Stephen Vasquez was not selected to the roster. Actually, issued an apology for not participating in some of the things that led to that decision to not include him on the roster. We will have a cooling break in this sweltering Caribbean sun. But it's an El Salvador side that has not qualified for a World Cup final since 1982. Back in Spain, also made it in 1970. Let's take a look at the 2 goals that have brought El Salvador into the driver's seat in this match. This just a gritty goal that Santos Ortiz is able to hammer home. And this one had the flair, had the beauty, and it had the finish. Bryan Gil, his 4th international goal in 12 appearances with El Salvador. So El Salvador, less than 20 minutes away from picking up 3 critical points. Again, the scenario for La Selecta is as follows. The easiest pathway for this bunch to advance to round 3, which is the final round of Concacaf World Cup qualifying, is to pick up 4 or more points over these final 2 matches, including today. So 3 points today, and then even just a draw against Suriname would suffice. That match on Tuesday night. El Salvador with 3 points today would move into 2nd place ahead of Puerto Rico, who has just 1 more match left against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But Puerto Rico can finish with as high as 7 points. El Salvador, a win today and a draw against Suriname would be at 8 points. And for El Salvador, a side that brought in somebody like Hernan Gomez to lead this club, who is known for bringing sides to the World Cup. He's done it with 3 different nations, one of just 4 managers who have ever done that, with 3 or more different nations, leading them to the World Cup. You think of some of the greats from El Salvador, even on that 82 team, Mágico González, his name still echoes in the halls of history in El Salvador. Still hangs around training, will occasionally be seen at training, an inspiration to the nation. And this bunch hoping to add to that legacy and bring success back to this Central American nation, as Gil brings it in and sends it wide. Bryan Gil, who was clinical back in the first half, with his stoppage time goal, could not add to his tally, and we will see more changes. Emerson Mauricio entering for El Salvador. Same with Rafael Tejada. Mauricio, his 8th cap. He was the 3rd leading goal scorer in the Salvadoran First Division this season with Alianza, one of the Salvadoran giants. And 2 alterations for Anguilla as Varian Cardi heads on, who just turned 22. His birthday was on Tuesday. And Javis Jones also heads on. Javis Jones from right here in the Valley. Jones, his 12th international appearance, plays domestically for Uprising FC. Meanwhile, Varian Cardi actually grew up in the United States, in the town of Alabaster, Alabama. Just wrapped up his college soccer career in the United States at Huntington College in Alabama, was a 3-year starter for the Hawks. And Landa Verde is down. Final 15 of this one. El Salvador comfortably on its way to 3 points. But I don't think that a 2-0 scoreline will satisfy the masses in El Salvador. Landa Verde leaves it central. Dueñas. Here's Tejada, his first touch. Popped out wide, lifted central, and it's past Lawrence. El Salvador has its 3rd. And it's Elvin Alvarado with his first international goal. And La Selecta on its way to 3 much-needed points in Anguilla. It was Tejada, left it wide. Alvarado was waiting for it and sneaks it just past Jelani Lawrence. And Elvin Alvarado, in his World Cup qualifying debut, comes on as a substitute and makes an impact. Here he is again. It's his first international goal. There's Jermaine Hughes. You see him wearing the captain band. He has meant so much to this Anguilla football program over the years. The captain made his debut back in 2012. At just 15 years old, the 3rd youngest debutant in the nation's history. One of the legends of Anguillan soccer. Here's Javis Jones. Has it taken off of him? Dueñas, who is actually eligible to play for 4 different national teams. Here he is again, born in the Netherlands. Also eligible for Finland and Curacao. Born to a Salvadoran father, a Finnish mother, as Lawrence fists it away. His grandfather from Curacao, and of course, Dueñas born in the Netherlands, so eligible for them as well. Elected to play for El Salvador. Larine sprays it in there. Lawrence brings it in. Nearly a 4th for La Selecta. Brian Tamakas hovering in the area. Lawrence ball heads out for a Salvadoran throw. Quickly taken back by Anguilla. Dueñas at the controls now. Dueñas not only from the Netherlands, but a product of the most prestigious academy in the Netherlands, Ajax. Currently plays for Top Os in the Dutch second division. Here is the aforementioned Dueñas. Dueñas lost it, and a goal kick coming for Jelani Lawrence. Final 10 or so minutes of this one. And Hernan Gomez will make a change. Harold Osorio heads on for Brian Landaverde. This is the World Cup qualifying debut for Harold Osorio, the native of San Salvador. Plays for Chicago Fire in MLS. Made his MLS debut. He's primarily been with the Chicago Fire reserve team in MLS Next Pro. Was one of the top goal scorers in the league last season. Here's a promising moment for Anguilla as is lifted central and quickly disposed of. Alvarado able to take it away, but Anguilla getting into that attacking third for the first time today. And it's moments like that you hear the energy, the passion from the supporters. They want to see this team succeed. And even today, down 3-0. If this remains the scoreline, it's a scoreline that I think Anguilla can be somewhat okay with, just given the disparity between these two sides. El Salvador 81st in the world in the FIFA rankings, Anguilla 209th. Second to bottom, just ahead of San Marino. Dueñas would cradle it, and it's cleared away. Mario Gonzalez, one of his few touches he's had today. Today his 20th World Cup qualifier appearance. The goalkeeper for El Salvador. Tamacas. Alvarado. Alvarado powers across right at Lawrence. Though that did cross the byline, and it will be a goal kick for Jelani Lawrence. Born in Dominica, eligible to play for Anguilla, made his debut at 2022, pardon me, the 5th oldest player to ever be capped by Anguilla. Today getting the start at 41 years of age. Here is the 15-year-old in Tariq Jackson. Jackson could maneuver past the captain, Julio Cibrian. Tamacas. Cartagena. Can El Salvador find a fourth? Jackson wins the header. Oh, El Salvador maintain. Here's Dueñas. Dueñas plays it through to Hada. Dueñas again lifts one in, and Lawrence has another save. Today's attendance just announced, 543 in attendance at Raymond E. Guishard Technical Center, a venue that holds about 1,000. This beautiful Saturday afternoon in the Valley. The island nation of Anguilla trying to build its footballing infrastructure, its footballing pedigree. It's a nation that certainly loves its cricket as well. Here's Tamakas.
Ladies and gentlemen, the total attendance for today's match day is 543. We want to thank
Alvarado, who scored just minutes ago.
2026 qualifying match between Anguilla and El Salvador.
Osorio now. Osorio! His strike turned away. And a down Anguilla player. It is Javis Jones. Javis Jones getting looked at. Let's see what happens. Osorio steps into one. Well, I do expect a decent amount of added time at the end of this match. And that hydration break, it is sweltering today. Real feel in the 90s. And this is certainly the last thing you want to see. Keith Jeffrey leads this Anguilla side, hired back in 2024. There he is, thumbs up from Keith Jeffrey. Has experience managing throughout the Caribbean. Check that, that's Tremaine Hughes, who was helped to his feet. It is tough to put into words what Hughes has meant to this Anguilla football program over the years. He's from Blowing Point on the island, plays domestically for Roaring Lions, but he is instrumental in the ascent of this Anguilla program. In 2018, reached out via social media to a German scout, Pascal Panicic, to help find players with Anguillan ancestry who are eligible for the national team. We send Jermaine our best as he's helped off. Here's Tejada. Scoops it in, Lawrence locates it. You cannot fault Jelani Lawrence. An admirable performance for the starting keeper for Anguilla. You wonder how many more World Cup appearances he may have in the future. It's actually two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of experience and age for the Anguilla goalkeepers. You have Lawrence at 41 years of age. The other keeper on the roster, Shamor Brown, just 16 years of age. So potentially the keeper of the future on the bench today for Anguilla. But Lawrence has had a very solid day between the sticks. Despite giving up the 3 goals, not much he could do on a decent chunk of them. Osorio. Dueñas turned off. Here's Cartagena. Fluttering ball. Switched for Tejada. Lovely first touch. Tejada wins a corner. El Salvador still playing with significant pace. It wants another goal. Can it find another goal? It won't come right here as Varian Carty got his back in front of that strike. Alvarado. Tejada has to muscle his way forward, gets back onto it. Lareen now as we enter stoppage time. Osorio has space, leaves it off. Alvarado back for Osorio. Cartagena. Sent towards Lawrence, who has another save. Seven saves now for Jelani Lawrence. And 6 minutes of added time signaled in by Okedo Nicholson. Tamacas. Alvarado now has one goal already. That feed broken up by Gums. And here comes Anguilla. Ahead towards Jackson. Tariq Jackson had a toe on it. Ciprian plays it back for Gonzalez, who calmly gets it out of the back. But you can hear the energy, the passion, the enthusiasm every time Anguilla has some semblance of an opportunity. And it's a fan base that continues to grow, but it's turned away. Here comes Osorio. Osorio rolls one. No trouble for Lawrence. That makes its way out for a throw-in for El Salvador. Who will leave the Valley with 3 points. But was it as convincing of a performance as the El Salvador faithful would have liked to see? That's the question. But at the end of the day, all that matters for this squad is reaching round 3. That will be determined on Tuesday. That match against Suriname, if Puerto Rico wins against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That match between Puerto Rico and St. Vincent and the Grenadines will kick off at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. So Puerto Rico would need to win that match to stay in contention, and then from that point, El Salvador would simply need a draw. Here's Osorio. Tejada. Tamacas. Final minutes of this one. Osorio flicks on, tap central, and it's just wide. Lawrence got his paws all over it on the strike from Enrico Duenas. Little space to work with. Lawrence, again a save on Duenas. Jelani Lawrence, a strong performance. Duenas pops it in. That's volleyed away. Still time for at least one more chance for El Salvador, who again will need just 1 point, will need a result against Suriname. That's all they need, or a Puerto Rico draw or loss. This deflects its way back out. Alvarado gathers. Alvarado stumbles his way free. Elvin Alvarado. Tamacas. Maybe one last moment here for El Salvador. Physical defending, Dueñas gets tangled up. Free kick coming for La Selecta. Enrico Dueñas will send this in. Likely the last opportunity for a Salvadoran fourth goal. Dueñas curls it in. Dueñas ball knocked away by Lawrence. Comes out to Alvarado. Dueñas pops it back into the area. Lawrence fists it away. There's the whistle. El Salvador, a much needed 3 points with a victory over Anguilla. 3-0 the final. Is it as satisfying as the Salvadoran faithful would have liked? Maybe not, but 3 points is 3 points. Ortiz, Heel, and Alvarado the goal scorers, as Keith Jeffrey and Hernan Gomez exchange a hug. And 3-0 is the final. El Salvador victorious. But for Anguilla, if you want signs of this football, this small footballing country's improvement over the years, you look back to the first 2 meetings between El Salvador and Anguilla back in 2010. On aggregate, El Salvador won those matches 16-0. This one, just a 3-0 scoreline. As Anguilla hung tough defensively, but El Salvador able to leave the Valley with a much-needed 3-point result. And now stands simply a result. A win or a draw against Suriname on Tuesday would be enough to send them through and guarantee a spot in the top 2 of Group F. That or anything shy of a Puerto Rico win against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. El Salvador now 2 wins, 1 draw, still 0 losses in round 2 of World Cup qualifying, as the journey towards 2026 continues for this bunch. Can La Selecta make it a 3rd World Cup final appearance? A result on Tuesday would certainly go a long way to doing that, but you see the excitement from Anguilla. This the final match of Anguilla's World Cup qualifying run. It was a historic run. The first time that Anguilla, population 15,000, ever made it beyond the first round of Concacaf World Cup qualifying. That in and of itself illustrates the growth of this nation in terms of football. But El Salvador will leave the Valley with a win, and we'll move 1 step closer to round 3, now needing just a win or a draw on Tuesday, or anything shy of a win for Puerto Rico against St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Tuesday. After that, El Salvador would advance to round 3. The 12 teams in round 3, which are from the top 2 teams in the 6 groups. Top team in each of those 3 groups would all qualify for the World Cup. Here's a look at the highlights. And we'll show you the 3 goals. It was minute 30 half an hour through. El Salvador was knocking on the door. Finally a breakthrough. Santos Ortiz buries it. It was a gritty goal. Lawrence couldn't fist it clear. Then Nathaniel Owen lost his footing, and Ortiz finds the netting. Then a little bit later, this was a thing of beauty. This is one that El Salvador will certainly hope to repeat. Just the interplay between those players. The run by Ordaz, his unselfish feed, the finish clinically done by Brian Hill. That is a team goal for sure. And it's that brand of soccer that El Salvador will certainly look to emulate moving forward. And then it was the finishing touches in the second half. The substitute, Elvin Alvarado, buries the third for La Selecta and secures the result. 3-0 the final score. Let's take one more look at it as Tejada shovels it out. And Larin with his 8th assist playing for El Salvador. Second most caps in Salvadoran history with the assist. And Alvarado, his first international goal. Here's a look at our full-time stats. Convincing to say the least. 41 shots for El Salvador, 0 for Anguilla. 14 of those 41 shots on target. 14 corner kicks as well. The possession stats lopsided, 87% in favor of El Salvador. Again, a lot of these numbers to be expected. You have 81st in the world in El Salvador versus 209th in the world in Anguilla. But Anguilla made it difficult. Just 3 of those 41 shots found the back of the net. Got past Jelani Lawrence. And El Salvador, its road to 2026 continues after a 3-0 victory on this picturesque Saturday in the Valley. A huge thanks to all of you for joining us, for our entire fantastic production crew. My name is John Gross, saying so long. El Salvador, La Selecta, its road to 2026 continues, and a pivotal match coming up on Tuesday night against Suriname. Round 3 looms potentially for La Selecta. For Anguilla, its World Cup qualifying road comes to an end. Again, a huge thanks to all of you for joining us. I'm John Gross, saying so long from the Valley. This is 2026 World Cup Qualifiers from the Valley in Anguilla.